This is Duke Devil 95. My name's Brad Burnett, and here we are, finally, the series finale, the season 3 finale, episode 10, Star Trek Picard, the final voyage of the crew of the Starship USS Enterprise-D. This last episode of Star Trek Picard is titled The Last Generation. It starts off with an emergency warning from Earth. The Enterprise-D crew gets a message from the Federation President, Anton Chekhov. And whose voice is it? It is Walter Koenig. Walter Koenig is playing Anton Chekhov, the son of Pavel Chekhov, who, of course, Walter Koenig played. And I got to think, there's a lot of callbacks in this whole scene right here. The message itself is mimicking the message that the Federation president gave out in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home about transmission of unknown origin causing damage to the planet. In this case, the transmission is causing the youth of the planet to attack everyone else. Anyone under 25 is being affected and attacking. And again, that's that callback, but obviously Walter Koenig playing Chekhov again, but there's another callback. And his name is Anton Chekhov. And the late Anton Yelkin played Pavel Chekhov in the rebooted JJ Trek. He, sadly lost his life in a really tragic accident. But I got to think that the name is just a callback. And Earth is falling, but President Chekhov says if his father was there, he'd remind us all that hope is never lost. There are always possibilities. And then the transmission ends. So on the bridge of the Enterprise, Worf is saying that the assimilated Starfleet is attacking Earth space dock. The space dock defenses are holding, but they're not going to last long. Riker wonders, where is the cavalry? And Data says, messages are going out, but no one's responding. It's very clear that the Enterprise-D is the cavalry. Then the Enterprise detects a Borg cube in orbit around Jupiter. So they warp over there and find that the Borg have hidden a transwarp conduit in the gas giant itself. So you see a giant Borg cube sticking out of possibly, the giant red spot. Possibly that's what it looks like it's coming out of. And they're getting the signal that's being broadcast, and Beverly searches to try to find Jack on the cube, and then it's confirmed that the source of this signal is in fact Jack, and he's projecting it to all the members of Starfleet, 25 years or younger. So they have to go in. Picard goes, and time to engage the cube, and they go in to take on the Borg once again. A battle that's been going on for 35 plus years. The Enterprise-D crew is going back into the fray. Back on the Titan, the ship is still under the control of the assimilated Starfleet members. However, Seven, Rafi, and a number of unassimilated crew are mounting a counterattack. They storm onto the bridge and start firing at the assimilated crew members. Each time they're hit, they're transported away. So what they've done basically is they've converted a phaser into a transporter gun, and they transport all the assimilated bridge crew members into a transporter room where they're locked in. So now they're able to take control of the bridge, but they got to figure out how to disconnect from this fleet formation program before the Borg discover that they have taken the Titan back. In orbit of Jupiter, Data discovers that the Borg cube is not fully operational. It's only about a third, 30-40% operational. Most of the resources of the ship are being used to broadcast a signal to Starfleet. Geordi figures out that somewhere in the Borg cube itself, there must be a beacon that's doing the transmitting. Deanna is getting some very strange feelings from the Borg. She describes it as sort of a quiet suffering, but she's also able to locate Jack and tell Beverly that he's been totally consumed by the collective. At that point, Worf, does a Worf thing and says, "What are we going to do if Jack is beyond rescue. And Picard just insists, no, that's not gonna happen. He's not gonna let that happen. The Borg cube then scans the Enterprise, and the cube lowers its shields and powers down its weapons. So Picard takes this as an invitation to go aboard. And he says, look, we have to get aboard the cube and we have to destroy it. Destroy the beacon. And he says, I'm going down. And he wants to go down alone. He's asked, Beverly to help track him to Jack because they've been able to track faint signals of a life sign. Riker insists, you're not going alone. I'm going with you. And then Worf, in a typical deadpan Worf comment, goes, I will make it a threesome. And, this is just, I just think back to some of the way Next Generation used to be. And there's always just like, we have a real tense situation. It's a little bit of lightheartedness. And Riker just goes, do you even hear what you're saying? It's just, it's a really tense situation. And it's not over the top humor. It's Worf being Worf because that's who the character is. It's okay to have laughs now and then. I mean, we don't need to have, yuck yuck all the time, MCU style. But it's just kind of, sometimes it happens in life. And sometimes it happens when the Enterprise crew is facing a world galaxy-ending crisis. So Picard, Worf, and Riker go to the turbolift. Riker looks back and shares a quiet exchange with Deanna because they both know this may be it. And Picard simply says, it's been an honor serving with you all. And they go and beam over to the cube. Picard's team is beamed over to the Borg cube, and immediately they notice how quiet it is, a lack of activity, a lack of sound. And they notice a bunch of dead Borg in all their alcoves. Some are decaying, some appear to be necrotizing, and Worf says that it appears that they're being cannibalized. Maybe that's why there's no biosigns. Beverly, however, is able to locate an area where Jack's biosigns are, and Picard, based on his prior knowledge of Locutus, has an idea of where to go. But he tells Riker and Worf that he's going to go alone. He can no longer be their captain. He has to go and be a father. And he asks them to go track down the beacon. Well, he's going to go save Jack. And he looks at Riker and starts to thank him. He stumbles a little bit on the words, and Riker is basically like, you don't need to say anything. I know what you're going to say. And, this is one of the things that I really liked about this episode. Just like there's some understated moments in it where things don't need to be said, because these are two men who Riker started as Picard's subordinate, his first officer. If I recall correctly, they never even met before Riker came on board the Enterprise. Picard just picked him. And you can go back and check Encounter at Farpoint, see the awkwardness of their first encounter. But over the years, they grew, to really respect each other as officers, as men, and became friends, became colleagues, and became family. So it's just, again, putting a nice bow on the present, that these two guys started out just as colleagues and have become family, just the same way the crew has. And nothing needs to be said. So he looks to Worf, and he's going to say something, and Worf says, there are two words that Klingons never admit to knowing. The first is defeat, and the other is farewell. And Picard understands. And he goes off to find Jack, while Riker and Worf go off to locate the beacon. Picard travels further and further into the cube. Beverly's directing him along the way, but eventually he loses communication. And then he comes in to the room, a large room, and finds an assimilated version of Jack. And Jack is now communicating to the entire fleet, directing orders. He tries to, wake Jack up, basically. He's like, Jack, snap out of it, basically. But Jack is he's completely assimilated. He is Vox, the same way Picard was Locutus. And then Picard hears a voice. It is the voice of the Borg Queen. And we see the Borg Queen, and it is just like a husk of a being. It's actually not Alice Krige playing the role. It's a different actress, but it is Alice Kriege's voice. And she says to Picard, Jack is home. And finally, Locutus has also returned to the collective. On the Titan, Seven and Rafi have detected the Enterprise-D in orbit of Jupiter, and they figured Picard is doing something. He's got a plan. He's using a ship that's not controlled by the fleet formation system. And they realize, if he's got a plan, we got to buy him time. So we got to do something to keep the fleet busy so that Picard can do whatever he needs to do. Rafi's figured out that the fleet formation system works by line of sight. So if a ship can't be seen, if it's cloaked, then maybe there's a chance that it can operate freely. So they come up with a plan where basically the ship is going to cloak and launch an attack. But some of the crew, one of the crew, in fact, one of Seven's unassimilated crew members, who happens to be the ship's chef, filling at helm, wonders how are they going to even stop this? And now it's time for Seven to be the captain and give a captain speech. And let's be honest, it's a traditional thing when you're facing a no-win scenario, a life or death situation. The captain in Star Trek always gives a speech. And she does give a speech. And she talks about, we're not just risking our lives here. This is not about us. It's about all of our family, all of our friends on the planet below. It's about the people who we've lost, who they've taken from us, and they've taken Captain Shaw. And we have to do this. It may be impossible, but we damn well going to try. And it's a good speech. And you can really see that Seven is being the captain. And at that point, everyone agrees. The Titan drops into cloak and prepares to execute his plan. Back on the Borg cube, Picard demands the Borg Queen tell him what she did to Jack. And she says, I did nothing. I only offered him the soft assurances of a mother. And Picard screams at her, you're not his mother, and starts firing off some phaser blasts, but she's protected by shields, of course. And she says it was Jack who found her just on the edge of space. Where the Borg were left poisoned. They didn't have any worlds to consume. There was no way for them to return. They were left to die due to starvation and age. And all of her children, the collective faded. But then she heard another voice, that of Jack. And Picard says, no, don't take Jack. Take me. And she says, no. No more now. It's no more Locutus. The future of the Borg is with Jack. And it's not about assimilation. It is about evolution of the Borg. Picard says to the Queen, you're insane. You're just consuming what's left of the collective so you can survive. It's insanity. And she says, I'm only doing that to bring you here because she wants Picard to witness. She wants him to see his humanity's end, your future's end. She explains that she made a deal with Vatican and the other changelings to be her weapons, her tools, because they also understood what it was to suffer at the hands of Starfleet. So they concocted this plan where they would use Picard's biology, the Borg DNA in it, to rewrite that into the genetic code of all of Starfleet and use those under 25 to take over, that they were now part of a new collective. And this new collective would not be about consuming materials. They didn't need to do that anymore. They would reproduce through biology. And a brand new collective would be created with the purpose of not assimilating, but annihilating its enemies. Elsewhere on the cube, Riker and Worf have tracked down an access node, and they're able to determine where the beacon is located. But unfortunately, where they are, not all the drones are dead. Some start waking up and start attacking. So Worf responds by using his sword, of course, slashing at him. He's able to knock down one, chop off his arm. Unfortunately, the other one sort of overpowers Worf, gets him with a phaser blast, I think in the shoulder. Worf falls back. He and Riker are hiding behind some sort of computer panel or something, and he hands the sword to Riker, and Riker just, he's with the hands, he just drops to the ground because it's so freaking heavy, and he's like, "Holy shit, how is this so heavy?" And Worf says, "Pull out the hilt, pull out the hilt," and it turns out there's a phaser in there, and Riker's like, "Why did we not use this before?" And Worf goes, "Swords are fun." So again, another tense moment, and deadpan Worf just goes, "Swords are fun." It's oh god. You have to have some lightheartedness sometimes. And Worf Michael Dorn has always been a great character to do that. So now they at least they have a phaser to fight off the Borg. Back at Earth, the Titan strategy of decloaking and attacking appears to be doing some damage. They're able to, take out several starships, but they're, the fleet is continuing to try to reconnect. So it's a constant, basically cat and mouse game where they're dropping their cloak, raising the cloak back up, firing shots while they can. It's only so long they're going to be able to do this. Raffi says they're starting to figure out our patterns. They're figuring out where we're dropping our cloak, when we're raising it. It's not going to be much longer that we can keep this up. But still, Seven says, let's keep doing as much as we can. We got to buy Picard time. So on the Enterprise, when things start happening on the cube, when Picard confronts the Queen, when Riker and Worf are being attacked by the drones, now the Enterprise is coming under attack at the same time. So Geordi orders Data to take evasive maneuvers. Uh, you know, Borg phaser blasts are hitting the ship, and he tells Beverly, "Look, I need you on the weapons, but they're not calibrated properly. I didn't have time to get the weapon system fully working. You're just going to have to fire by hand." And apparently that's no problem for Beverly, because she just basically fires left and right, doing significant damage to the Borg ship. And again, another lighthearted moment. It's okay, it's fine. Where everyone just sort of turns around and looks at, you know, the doctor, the ship's doctor, who just, laid waste to a significant portion of the Borg cube, and she just goes, "A lot has happened in the last 20 years." Around this time, Riker and Worf are able to communicate with the ship and say, we've tracked down the beacon schematics. Here they are," and they transmit them to the Enterprise. And it turns out they're at the heart of the cube, and the path to get there is freaking impossible. I mean, on the screen it shows, I don't even know how the hell they would get there. This is the most ridiculous path ever in the world. And Geordi says it's impossible to navigate. Even his daughter couldn't do it. Now, that's him just being a dad saying, my kid can do anything, because let's be serious, no one can do this. But Data says, wait, I can do it. My gut tells me I can. And at that point, honestly, I'm wondering, wait a minute, how much of Data is still old Data? Mentally, we know where Data is. He's incorporated all the other personalities to become sort of a more humanistic Data. But one thing I was not clear on, I guess I'm gonna have to go back and watch again, is the body, the android body, the synthetic body that he's in. Is it analogous to android Data? Because Picard's body was made human, with human aging and human frailties and everything like that. So is he still the old Data? Android Data with superhuman reflexes, or not? I'm not certain about that, but I kind of figure I would figure he is, because what he then does is he takes the Enterprise into the cube, and literally this is the Millennium Falcon Jedi Death Star run, going in and out. It's an insane trip. And there's no way that a Galaxy class starship should be doing this. Let's be honest. Galaxy class starship is not designed for agility, maneuverability, quick actions like that. That's the Defiant. But you know what? I don't care. It's fun to see it happen. And eventually, he works his way to the point where they now have reached the beacon. But of course, it's not just going to be, it's not as easy as just blowing up the beacon. Yeah, there's more that they got to face beyond just that.